There are 4 stages every human being must pass through if they want to experience real success, deep fulfillment, and unstoppable growth. These stages don't care about your background, your excuses, your circumstances, or your fears. They show up in everyone's life. The question is not whether you'll face them, the question is how you'll respond. Because life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Stage 1, the wake up. At some point, life shakes you, it disrupts your rhythm. It shatters the illusion that you can stay comfortable forever. Maybe it's a setback, a loss, a disappointment, or a moment where you look in the mirror and realize you've been living far below your true potential. This wake up moment is not a punishment, it's an invitation. It's life saying, you are more than this. Stand up, rise, become the person you were meant to be. Most people ignore this stage. They numb themselves with distractions. They blame others. They wait for the perfect moment. But greatness begins the instant you decide to listen. Stage 2A, the breakdown. Once you wake up, you enter the most misunderstood stage, the breakdown. This is where every fear, every doubt, every old belief comes to the surface. It's uncomfortable. It feels unfair. It feels like everything is falling apart. But breakdowns are not the end, they are the doorway. Think of the gym. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from resistance. You grow when something challenges you. You grow when something pushes back. You grow when you feel the pressure and choose to stay in the fight. Your breakdown is simply your old identity breaking away so your new identity can emerge. This is where people quit. This is where people say, it's too hard. But this is also where champions are forged. Stage 3, the breakthrough. The third stage is where everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you change. A breakthrough doesn't show up because life gets easier. It shows up because you finally reclaim your power. You decide what you tolerate. You decide what you focus on. You decide what meaning you give to your past. You decide who you become next. A breakthrough is nothing more than a moment of truth where you stop negotiating with your limitations and start demanding more from yourself. It's the moment you say, enough of the excuses, enough of the fear, enough of the story that I'm not ready, not capable, or not enough. And in that moment, something awakens inside you. Energy returns, certainty grows. Possibility expands. You become someone who doesn't just dream, you execute, you commit, you act with purpose. Stage 4A, the transformation. Transformation is the final stage, but it's not final because you stop growing. It's final because you become someone new. In this stage, the goals are no longer just goals, they are standards. The dreams are no longer just dreams, they are realities in progress. Discipline becomes natural. Focus becomes effortless. Success becomes a byproduct of who you are, not something you chase. Transformation means you've rewired how you think, how you show up, how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself, and how you treat others. This is where you step into the highest expression of your life's potential. And once you've transformed, the cycle begins again. A new wake up, a new breakdown, a new breakthrough, a new transformation. This is how life elevates you. This is how life tests you. This is how life expands you. Final message, these 4 stages are unavoidable, but they're also the greatest gift life offers. You can resist them, or you can use them. You can fear them, or you can master them. But if you choose to embrace them, if you choose to step into each stage with courage, you won't just achieve success, you will become the kind of person success is naturally attracted to. Your future is built in these 4 stages. Your destiny is forged in them, and your greatness is waiting on the other side of your next breakthrough. Every success journey begins with a wake up moment that disrupts comfort and demands change, and this moment often arrives long before we feel ready for it. It doesn't knock politely, it shakes the foundation of your life in a way you can't ignore. Sometimes it's a quiet realization, like a voice inside whispering that you're meant for more than the routine you've settled into. Other times it's a dramatic event, a loss, a failure, a betrayal, a mistake, or even a moment of deep dissatisfaction that forces you to see your life with new clarity. This wake up moment isn't about what happens around you, it's about what happens within you. It's the instant you recognize that the life you're living doesn't match the life you're capable of living, and that gap becomes impossible to tolerate anymore. Most people try to shut this moment down when it arrives. They numb the discomfort with distractions, routines, or excuses. They convince themselves that things are fine, even when something inside them knows they're not. They cling to familiarity because the unfamiliar feels risky. But comfort has never been a creator of greatness. Growth never comes from a place of ease, it comes from a place of disruption. This wake-up moment is actually a gift, even though it rarely feels like one. It's a signal from life urging you to rise, to stretch, to step into a bigger version of yourself. It's an invitation to stop playing small and start acting like the person you know you were meant to be. When this moment hits, it doesn't just reveal that something needs to change, it reveals that you need to change. Your habits, your thinking, your standards, your beliefs, your environment, your circle, your actions, everything you've outgrown becomes impossible to ignore. You may feel restless, frustrated, or confused, but that feeling is simply life's way of telling you that your old identity no longer fits the future you're meant to create. It's the moment where you realize that staying the same is actually more painful than evolving. You can no longer lie to yourself about what you want or what you're capable of. The mirror becomes too honest. This wake-up isn't just emotional, it's energetic. It shifts something inside you. You begin questioning the routines you've accepted for years. You begin noticing the dreams you buried. You begin feeling a desire that's stronger than your fear. You start to see that the excuses you've been repeating are just stories, and those stories have shaped the limits of your life. In this moment, awareness becomes power. The moment you become aware of what's missing is the same moment you become aware of what's possible. That awareness is the spark that ignites change. But this stage also comes with resistance. The mind tries to pull you back toward what's safe. It whispers doubts and rationalizations. It reminds you of past failures. It tries to convince you that no isn't the right time. That resistance isn't a sign that you shouldn't move forward. It's a sign that you must. Resistance only shows up when something meaningful is at stake. The presence of doubt doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you're standing at the edge of transformation. And the first step forward, even a small one, begins weakening the old patterns that have been holding you in place. In this stage, clarity begins to form. You start seeing what you want more clearly, not because the dream changed, but because you finally opened your eyes to it. You begin recognizing the price of staying the same. You begin realizing that every minute you delay is a minute taken from the life you want. The wake-up moment teaches you that time is not guaranteed, and neither is growth. You have to choose it, you have to claim it, you have to decide that your potential is non-negotiable. And then something powerful happens. You start telling yourself the truth about what you want, the truth about what you've avoided, the truth about the person you've been pretending to be. This honesty, though uncomfortable, is liberating. It becomes the foundation of real change, because you can't change a life you're not willing to examine. When you finally face the truth, even if it's painful, you reclaim the ability to rewrite the story. This wake-up stage is not about having everything figured out. It's about acknowledging that you can't continue in the same direction. It's about understanding that comfort is costing you the life you were born to live. It's about realizing that every dream, every goal, every breakthrough begins with the courage to admit that something needs to shift. And in that moment of honesty, a deeper part of you awakens, the part that's strong, hungry, capable, resilient, and ready to rise. Breakdowns are not failures. They are the necessary friction that prepares you for growth. And this truth becomes clear the moment life places you in a situation where everything feels heavy, uncertain, or overwhelming. A breakdown doesn't arrive to punish you, it arrives to reshape you. It's the stage where your old patterns, beliefs, and limitations collide with the demands of the future you're meant to step into. This collision feels uncomfortable, sometimes painful, but it is in that discomfort that transformation begins. Most people misunderstand this stage because they see chaos and assume something is wrong, when in reality something is being rebuilt. The breakdown is the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. In this stage, the universe, life, or whatever force you believe in starts stripping away everything that can't go with you to your next level. Old habits that kept you stagnant break down. Relationships that drained you begin to fall apart. Goals that were based on fear instead of purpose lose their power. You start realizing that the identity you've been protecting is the very thing limiting your progress. The breakdown makes all of this visible. It brings all the suppressed issues to the surface so you can finally face them. It exposes the weaknesses you've been ignoring so you can strengthen them. It forces you to confront the lies you've been telling yourself so you can replace them with truth. Growth demands honesty, and breakdowns create the conditions for that honesty. This phase often feels like being stuck between two worlds. You're no longer the person you used to be, but you're not yet the person you know you can become. That in-between space can feel disorienting. You might feel lost, confused, or unmotivated. You might question your abilities, question your decisions, or question whether you're capable of more. But these emotions are not signs of failure. They are signs that your inner world is being reorganized. When you renovate a home, things look messy before they look beautiful. Your life works the same way. The breakdown is the demolition phase, clearing out what no longer serves you. During this stage, you begin to discover the areas where you've settled for less. You notice the dreams you postponed because fear convinced you they were unrealistic. You recognize the patterns that have kept you repeating the same cycles. The breakdown is not just emotional, it's educational. It teaches you what you've been tolerating. It teaches you what needs to change. It teaches you what you no longer want in your life. These lessons become the foundation for your next level of strength and clarity. And though this stage can feel overwhelming, it is also where your greatest power begins to emerge. Pressure reveals what's inside you. When life squeezes you, your character, your resilience, your hunger, your truth all rise to the surface. You begin tapping into a deeper strength, one that might not have shown up if everything had stayed comfortable. The breakdown forces you to find new solutions, new perspectives, and new levels of emotional endurance. It pushes you to grow in ways you wouldn't have chosen on your own. This stage also tests your commitment. Anyone can dream when things are easy. Anyone can feel confident when life flows smoothly. But real commitment is proven in the moments when nothing seems to be working, when progress is invisible, when doubt sneaks in. The breakdown asks you a simple question: how badly do you want to change? It asks whether you're willing to push through discomfort, whether you're willing to let go of what's familiar, whether you're willing to trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. Many people retreat here because they mistake difficulty for danger, but difficulty is simply the sign that you're expanding. Another powerful aspect of this stage is the emotional release it often triggers. Moments of frustration, sadness, anger, or exhaustion aren't indicators that you're failing. They're indicators that you're shedding layers that no longer belong to you. Every time you cry, every time you release a fear, every time you acknowledge a truth you avoided, you create more space for clarity, creativity, and strength. This release is part of the transformation. Without it, you'd carry old emotional weight into your future, and that weight would anchor you to your past. What many people don't realize is that breakdowns often happen right before breakthroughs. The pressure intensifies when you're close to a shift. The obstacles feel stronger when you're near the edge of progress. The emotions feel heavier because your mind is resisting the change your soul is ready for. This resistance is a sign that something big is coming, something you've been preparing for consciously or unconsciously. The breakdown is the final test before the breakthrough, the final storm before the skies clear. In this stage, you're being prepared to think differently, prepared to act differently, prepared to show up with more strength, more clarity, and more intention. The breakdown strengthens your emotional muscles. It sharpens your awareness. It humbles you enough to grow, but empowers you enough to rise. It's a necessary part of evolution, and though it challenges you, it also changes you in ways you will one day be grateful for. A breakthrough happens the instant you stop negotiating with limitations and reclaim your power, and this shift is rarely a dramatic explosion of change. More often, it's a quiet internal decision that becomes the turning point of your entire life. It's the moment when you recognize that the obstacles in front of you are not as powerful as the beliefs within you. A breakthrough doesn't come from waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, or the right conditions. It comes from deciding that you will no longer let fear, doubt, or past experiences dictate the future you're working toward. It emerges when you finally draw a line in the sand and say, "This ends now." It's that inner declaration where something stronger than excuses begins to guide you. This moment often arrives after you've been pushed, stretched, or challenged enough to see the truth about your potential. When life has tested you and you've survived every test so far, something clicks. You realize you're stronger than you thought. That realization alone can create the emotional and mental shift needed to break through old patterns. A breakthrough is not about removing challenges. It's about rising above them with a new level of certainty. It's about choosing the meaning you give to your struggles. It's understanding that pain can be a prison, or it can be the power source that propels you into a better future. At the core of every breakthrough is a change in identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's trying, hoping, or wishing, and you start seeing yourself as someone who can, someone who will, someone who must. This shift in identity is the foundation of new behavior. Once you decide who you are, your actions naturally align with that identity. If you decide you're disciplined, you behave differently. If you decide you're capable, you take different risks. If you decide you're deserving, you stop accepting less than you want. Every breakthrough is built on a new decision about who you truly are. But to reach this moment, you must confront the stories you've been living with for years. Stories about why you can't, why you shouldn't, why you're not ready. These stories have shaped your reality more than any circumstance. They've held you back with invisible chains. The breakthrough comes when you finally challenge them. When you say, "What if this story isn't true?" Or, "What if I've been limiting myself without even realizing it?" The moment you question your limitations, they begin to lose their power. The moment you take ownership of your narrative, you take ownership of your life. A breakthrough often appears in the smallest actions. You make a choice you avoided before. You take a step you feared taking. You speak a truth you used to suppress. You choose discipline over distraction, courage over comfort, commitment over excuses. These seemingly small choices create massive internal shifts. They signal to your mind that you're no longer operating from the old version of yourself. And once the mind recognizes a new pattern, it begins to reorganize your entire emotional and behavioral system around it. This stage also requires a change in focus. You stop obsessing over what's wrong and begin concentrating on what's possible. You shift from thinking about what you lack to recognizing what you can create. Focus is power. What you focus on, you feel. What you feel, you act on. What you act on, you become. A breakthrough occurs when you learn to redirect your focus toward the future you want instead of the past you've endured. This is where clarity strengthens. This is where motivation expands. This is where energy returns. One of the most powerful elements of a breakthrough is the emotional release that accompanies it. You may feel a surge of certainty, a sudden sense of freedom, a wave of relief, or a burst of determination. These emotions aren't random. They're signals that you've broken free from a limiting pattern. They are proof that your mind and body have shifted into alignment with a new direction. This emotional activation fuels momentum. It becomes the driving force that pushes you into action before doubt has the chance to pull you back. A breakthrough also comes from raising your standards. You decide what you will no longer tolerate from yourself, your environment, and your life. When your standards rise, your behavior rises. When your standards rise, the people and opportunities around you change. When your standards rise, your results transform. A breakthrough is the moment you refuse to settle for anything less than the life you know you're capable of creating. It's important to understand that breakthroughs rarely show up as giant leaps. They show up as tiny shifts that compound. A new thought, a new decision, a new responsive perspective. But these tiny shifts are powerful because they change the trajectory of your life. Even a 1-degree shift, consistent over time, leads you somewhere completely different. And in that moment when you finally step into your power, everything around you starts to rearrange itself to match the new version of you. You begin attracting different opportunities. You begin seeing options where you once saw obstacles. You begin acting with intention instead of fear. And once you experience that breakthrough, you realize that you were capable of this all along. Transformation comes from raising your standards, not just chasing goals, and this truth becomes undeniable the moment you realize that goals can inspire you, but standards define you. A goal is something you hope to achieve. A standard is something you refuse to live without. A goal is in the future. A standard shapes your decisions in the present. A goal can be postponed. A standard demands action. Real transformation doesn't happen because you set a target. It happens because you change what you expect from yourself every single day. When you raise your standards, your behaviors follow. Your habits shift. Your mindset shifts. Your level of effort shifts. And eventually, your entire life begins to align with the identity required to live at that higher level. Most people stay stuck not because they don't have goals, but because their standards are too low. They tolerate things that drain their energy. They accept patterns that sabotage their progress. They cling to excuses that justify staying in the same place. They allow fear, laziness, or old beliefs to dictate their choices. When you raise your standards, all of that begins to fall away. You stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You stop entertaining the distractions that once controlled you. You stop letting circumstances decide who you're going to be. Instead, you become the kind of person who follows through, who shows up, who demands more from themselves than the world demands from them. Raising your standards doesn't mean setting unrealistic expectations or pretending to be perfect. It means refusing to settle for the version of yourself that you know is holding you back. It means deciding that discipline is more important than comfort, that growth is more important than excuses, that progress is more important than temporary pleasure. It means drawing a boundary between who you were and who you are becoming. That boundary becomes the foundation of transformation. Because once you commit to a new standard, you begin reshaping everything around it, your schedule, your habits, your relationships, your routines, your thinking. When you raise your standards, you start noticing the patterns that no longer fit your new identity. You recognize the people who don't support your growth. You identify the behaviors that keep you small. You become aware of the thoughts that sabotage your progress. This awareness is not meant to make you judge yourself, it's meant to empower you. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. And raising your standards forces you to look honestly at your life and identify what needs to be upgraded. Transformation also requires consistency. Anyone can raise their standards for a day. Many can do it for a week. But true transformation occurs when your standards become non-negotiable, when you commit to them even on the days you don't feel motivated. Motivation is temporary, but standards are permanent. They guide you when your emotions fluctuate. They carry you when your energy dips. They keep you accountable when your mind tries to talk you out of your potential. The moment your standards stop depending on how you feel is the moment your transformation accelerates. Another powerful aspect of raising your standards is that it changes your environment. When you elevate your expectations for yourself, the world responds. People treat you differently. Opportunities begin to appear. You attract relationships that match your level of growth and lose those that match your past. You start surrounding yourself with individuals who challenge you, inspire you, and elevate you. Environment is a mirror of your standards, and as you transform internally, your external world begins to reflect that transformation. Raising your standards also shifts the meaning you give to challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you see them as tests designed to strengthen you. Instead of viewing failure as proof that you're not capable, you see it as feedback guiding you toward a better path. You stop expecting the journey to be easy and start expecting yourself to be strong. This shift in perspective becomes one of your greatest advantages because it eliminates the emotional roller coaster that keeps so many people stuck. When your standards are high, difficulty becomes part of the process, not a reason to quit. Transformation requires intention. It requires clarity about who you want to become and what kind of life you want to live. But most importantly, it requires a decision that you will no longer tolerate mediocrity from yourself, a decision that you will no longer postpone your potential, a decision that you will show up with excellence, not occasionally but consistently. This decision is the moment your transformation begins, because transformation is never an accident, it is always a choice. And the more you honor that choice, the more your identity evolves. Raising your standards also unlocks a level of pride and confidence that goals alone can never provide. Confidence doesn't come from achieving something, it comes from seeing yourself act in alignment with your higher standards. Every time you follow through when you didn't want to, confidence grows. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, confidence grows. Every time you honor a promise to yourself, confidence grows. This internal strength becomes a powerful force that moves you forward long before the results show up. And as your standards rise, something profound happens. You stop trying to change your life and start becoming the person whose life changes naturally. The transformation becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about embodying the identity that attracts those outcomes. Your life doesn't improve because you wished for it, it improves because you elevated what you demand from yourself and what you're willing to become in order to make it real. Life cycles through these 4 stages repeatedly, each time elevating your potential, and understanding this truth changes the way you experience every challenge, every victory, and every transition. Most people assume growth is a straight line, a steady climb upward, but real growth is cyclical. It comes in phases, waves, and seasons. Just when you think you've reached a peak, life brings a new lesson. Just when you feel comfortable, you're pushed again. Just when you believe you've mastered one area, another area calls for your attention. This cycle isn't a punishment, it's the natural rhythm of expansion. Every time the cycle repeats, it brings a deeper level of awareness, strength, and identity. You are not being tested because you're weak, you are being invited into a higher version of yourself each time the cycle returns. When you understand this cycle, you no longer panic during the wake-up moments. You no longer fear the breakdowns. You no longer resist the breakthroughs. You no longer doubt the transformations. Instead, you begin to see each stage as a familiar friend, an ally that is shaping you into someone more capable, more grounded, and more powerful. You start to trust the process instead of fighting it. You begin to recognize that every stage is preparing you for something you previously weren't ready for. You understand that success is not about avoiding challenges, but about mastering the cycle each time it reappears. In each cycle, the wake-up moment becomes sharper. What used to take pain or crisis to wake you up now happens with clarity and intuition. You become more aware of when you're slipping into old patterns. You catch yourself sooner. You notice the signs earlier. Life no longer has to shake you violently to get your attention because your awareness has expanded. That is the gift of being in the cycle long enough. You develop emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and intuition that guide you without chaos needing to intervene. The breakdown stage also begins to take on a new meaning. Instead of seeing it as a collapse, you start seeing it as a clearing. You start to understand that breakdowns are simply the removal of what no longer aligns with your next level. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this making possible?" You stop resisting the discomfort and begin appreciating the growth it creates. You begin to lean into challenges instead of shrinking from them. You recognize that every breakdown is an opportunity to shed an outdated identity and step into a new one. This mindset alone strengthens you more than any external success ever could. As the cycle progresses, breakthroughs also become more frequent and more accessible. You no longer need dramatic moments of revelation to change your life. Breakthroughs begin happening in your decisions, in your habits, in your conversations, and in your thoughts. You start creating breakthroughs instead of waiting for them. You begin taking action faster. You begin trusting your instincts more. You begin becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream of breaking limits, you live in a way that constantly surpasses them. Breakthroughs become a normal part of your evolution instead of rare moments you hope for. Transformation, the final stage, deepens with every cycle. You begin to transform not just in outcomes, but in identity. You transform how you think, how you carry yourself, how you respond to life, how you treat your own potential. And with each transformation, your standards rise even further. You start wanting more, not out of greed, but out of purpose. You realize that the version of you that once seemed extraordinary is now your baseline. This is how the cycle elevates you. Every cycle raises your floor, not just your ceiling. And the more times you move through these stages, the more resilient you become. You develop mental toughness that cannot be shaken easily. You develop emotional strength that anchors you in uncertainty. You develop clarity about what truly matters and what doesn't deserve your attention. You begin to operate from a place of power rather than survival. You stop reacting to life and start leading it. You begin stepping into challenges willingly because you know that the cycle always leads to a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of you. This repetitive cycle also teaches you humility and confidence at the same time. Humility because you realize you will always have more to learn, more to master, more to discover. Confidence because you recognize that no matter what stage you enter, you have navigated it before and you can do it again. This balance creates an inner stability that becomes unshakable. You stop fearing life's unpredictability because you trust your ability to adapt, to grow, and to rise. Eventually, you begin to welcome the cycle. You begin to embrace the evolution it brings. You understand that every challenge is refining you, every setback is preparing you, and every breakthrough is expanding you. You begin to see your life not as a series of problems, but as a series of stages guiding you toward your highest potential. You begin to accept that growth is not something you achieve once, but something you live continuously. And with each cycle, your potential expands beyond what you once thought was possible. Your response to each stage, not the stage itself, determines your destiny, and this truth holds more power than most people ever realize. Life is constantly presenting moments, challenges, opportunities, and experiences that shape your direction, but it is your interpretation and response to these experiences that create your ultimate path. Two people can go through the exact same situation. One grows stronger while the other collapses. The difference isn't the event, it's the meaning they assign to it and the action they choose afterward. Your destiny isn't written by your circumstances, it's written by how you respond to them. The stages of life you go through don't define you, your decisions inside those stages do. Every wake-up moment, every breakdown, every breakthrough, every transformation offers you a set of choices. Do you resist or accept? Do you complain or learn? Do you shrink or rise? Do you repeat old patterns or create new standards? These choices accumulate. Every response builds your identity brick by brick. Your destiny is not one giant decision, it's the sum of thousands of small responses you make every day. This is why two people with the same struggles can end up living completely different lives. One uses the stages as fuel, the other uses them as excuses. One chooses growth, the other chooses comfort. One chooses meaning, the other chooses fear. The moment you understand that your responses are shaping your future, you reclaim power over every aspect of your life. In the wake-up stage, your response determines whether you evolve or stay stuck. When life shakes you awake, you can choose to ignore the signs and cling to comfort, or you can choose to listen and step forward into change. Most people hit snooze on their wake-up moments. They choose avoidance, distraction, or denial. They pretend they don't feel the pull toward more. But the ones who rise, the ones who create extraordinary lives, are the ones who respond with awareness. They choose to acknowledge the discomfort instead of hiding from it. They use it as a signal to grow rather than a reason to retreat. This simple response sets them on a completely different path from those who stay asleep in their old patterns. In the breakdown stage, your response becomes even more important. Breakdowns test your emotional strength. They reveal your resilience. They challenge everything you've believed about yourself. In this stage, you can respond with frustration, victimhood, and resistance, or you can respond with curiosity, patience, and willingness to grow. The way you respond determines whether the breakdown becomes a setback or a setup. When you choose to respond with courage instead of fear, the breakdown becomes a catalyst. When you choose to lean in rather than shut down, the breakdown becomes a doorway. When you choose to ask, "What is this teaching me?" instead of "Why is this happening to me?" the breakdown becomes the foundation for your breakthrough. In the breakthrough stage, your response determines how far that breakthrough carries you. A breakthrough isn't just a moment, it's a decision that requires reinforcement. You can treat the breakthrough as a temporary burst of motivation, or you can respond by committing fully to the new identity it revealed. Many people experience breakthroughs but lose them because they don't respond with consistent action. They feel the spark but don't protect it. They feel the shift but don't anchor it. But those who transform their lives respond differently. They build on the breakthrough. They act immediately. They follow through. They reinforce the new beliefs and behaviors until the breakthrough becomes their new baseline. Their response turns a moment of clarity into a lifetime of progress. In the transformation stage, your response shapes your long-term destiny. Once you step into a new version of yourself, the world will test your commitment to that identity. Old habits will try to return. Old fears will knock on the door. Old environments may try to pull you back. Your response in these moments determines whether the transformation sticks or slips away. You can respond by lowering your standards to match your past, or you can respond by raising your standards to match your future. You can respond by letting circumstances control you, or you can respond by leading your own life with intention. Transformation is not something you achieve once. It's something you maintain through repeated responses to challenges, temptations, and opportunities. What's powerful is that your response doesn't just shape your present, it shapes your character, and your character shapes your destiny. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen your character. Every time you choose responsibility over excuses, you strengthen your character. Every time you choose courage over fear, you strengthen your character. And once your character becomes stronger than your circumstances, destiny begins to feel less like fate and more like something you're actively creating. This understanding also gives you freedom. You no longer have to fear the stages of life because you realize they don't control your outcome. You do. You don't have to fear challenges because you know you can choose meaning. You don't have to fear setbacks because you know you can choose resilience. You don't have to fear uncertainty because you know you can choose focus. The power is always in your hands, not in the stage you're facing. Your destiny isn't written by luck, circumstances, or external forces. It's written every time you choose growth over comfort, every time you choose action over hesitation, every time you choose strength over limitations. Life will continue to bring you the 4 stages: wake-ups, breakdowns, breakthroughs, and transformations, but it is your response to them that shapes who you become and what you create.